Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today we have Mariana Ruiz, who is a business coach that helps moms build profitable businesses so they can create freedom and impact. She's been featured in major publications such as the Huffington Post, sharing her wisdom to help those moms create the life they want. So let's give a warm welcome to Mariana. So Mariana, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. So how did you get into this world of helping moms just develop more freedom of time by building businesses? What was that journey for you?
Wow. So I am actually a nurse, and it was a kind of a windy road. I worked in really high intense specialties. I did neurosurgery and organ transplantation, and I love those specialties. And I moved down to South Texas because of my husband's job. As we talked a little bit earlier, my husband works for the government. So we got repositioned down here, and I ended up taking a job at the local hospital as a case manager, which is kind of like a little bit of administration and utilization review, meaning let's get the most use out of the dollars that the hospital is spending on the patients while providing the best quality care. So my job was really to, on a case-by-case basis, improve the profitability of the hospitals, and the one hospital where I worked. And so I really enjoyed that job. I had some real estate, and so I had some experience with business, and it just like reignited my love for business in that job. And around that time, I was noticing this horrible pattern that I think so many moms go through, and that is I would drop my child off at school. He was less than 1 year old. It was daycare, but we called it school. And I would come home, and I would have an hour with him before he was just pooped and ready to go to bed. And this happened day after day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And it was heartbreaking to really not experience my son growing up and all the milestones. He walked at daycare, he crawled at daycare, and I really missed a lot of that. And so I thought, I need to make something change here. And I started as a health coach in 2014, and it was great. It obviously made sense because I was a nurse. I had recently lost about 80 pounds, so I had a lot to say about health and weight loss. And I went down the entrepreneurial path again, and I just did it after he would go to bed because, like I said, he was only up for about an hour. And I built that business about a month or two in. I got pregnant with my daughter, and she was born a micro preemie. She was only 28 weeks when she was born. And yeah, she was 2 pounds, ended up being in the hospital for about 68 days. And FMLA in the States, if you have an international audience, is like family medical leave. You only really get 6 weeks. And that's all I got. So I thought I need to go all into my business so that I can support my family, because at that point we didn't know how long she would stay in the hospital. So I ended up working on my business and supporting my family through the time she was in the hospital and afterwards. She came home, but she was still requiring a lot of help. She had home health, nurses coming. She was on a breathing monitor because she would stop breathing. So obviously I wasn't going to hire a nurse to watch her 24/7 when I was a nurse. So it really made more sense for me to build this business. And as I was going through the process of supporting my family with my business, I thought, this is something I need to show others what I'm doing. I need to teach other moms. And it no longer became about me and my family, it became about helping other people to have that freedom that I was so fortunate to create for myself. And that's how I got started, and that's where we are today. So now I've built my business coaching business for a year now, and I've helped hundreds of moms. It's been so rewarding, so fulfilling, and I've just basically self-taught myself. That's really...
Wow.
Yeah.
And, that's a very powerful why, to be able to spend those moments with your son, because you think about how many people end up missing out on all those moments, like you said, of the first time he walked, that you would love to have been there for, but someone else got to see it because he was in daycare. But then not only that, think about the number of women out there, moms, that they're only working a job to essentially pay for daycare, where they might as well just hand the paycheck over to wherever they're taking their child to, because of the quality of the care they're getting.
Yeah.
So it makes more sense to follow that route.
So true. This happens all the time with the moms that come to me. They're like, well, I need to work so I can pay for daycare. And it's like that catch-22. It's such a difficult spot to be in as a mom. It's never really easy being a mom. That's probably one of the most heartbreaking parts for me.
Right. I can imagine. It's that desire to work, but at the same time, if you're just handing it over, what to do instead. So what do you say to moms to get them out of that catch-22 mentality that they have to work someplace just to pay for daycare?
So I like to start to have them set up some different income streams for themselves. Like I said, I always had real estate, so that was a nice little cushion. And I've always been all about diversifying your income, because if you don't diversify your income, what if your job goes away, like mine did?
Right.
And so starting to set up some diversification of income is a great way to do it. And if they're able to, doing something that's going to pay a little bit more, like coaching or consulting of some sort, is a great way to bring extra money in. Because the problem is, if you totally get rid of the daycare, then you can't work on your business either, right? Because you won't be able to have a job either, right? So
right.
It's a really fine line, and it's really a case-by-case basis, but looking at what the income streams are and how to increase their hourly income in whatever way possible.
Okay. So when it comes to income streams, besides real estate and coaching, what do you like to recommend people to consider looking at?
It depends on if they want something more long-term or short-term. So I really like passive income streams. Like, let's say we were to set up a funnel or, through a course or a digital program or something. And a lot of people want to do that and do that very successfully. But when you're starting off, if you don't have an audience, we have to grow your audience first. And so I focus with them on growing their audience and doing something like coaching first to get their feet wet, start to understand the audience. And then if they want to go into passive income, we'll do that. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. You have to start with what's the simplest thing to do, and then what can also just keep feeding you over and over. So obviously building an audience makes the most sense. So at that point, what is it that you are teaching them? How are you helping them build that audience? Because there's so many people say, okay, great. So how do I do it? Where they have just their handful of friends on Facebook or Twitter, but they've never really positioned themselves as a business. What are those things that they should be doing to start building an audience?
Number one is start creating content, and that's the way to position yourself as the expert and kind of share what it is that you know. I always think of the analogy of, think of yourself as this super geeky, like high-end computer programmer. And you see them on Facebook and they might say, I'm a computer programmer. And then your computer breaks down and they message you and say, can you help me? But they've never put out any content. So you have no idea what the capacity is of their work with computers, because there's just so many things that they could be doing with a computer. So content allows you to kind of bridge that gap by sharing some of the things that you know that might help your audience.
Right. Oh, definitely. And that content, where should they be putting it at? Because if they don't have traffic on their own website, let's say they just set it up, what makes the most sense to start positioning themselves as that expert?
I think the best way to start is just on social media. And like I said, I like to keep things really simple. So it depends on what their strength are, what their strength is. So if they're really great at Twitter, start tweeting more. If they're really great at Pinterest, start pinning more. And if they're great at Facebook, go with that route. And I like to also think of where is the audience, right? So if you're selling to high-end corporate executives, you know, Pinterest might not be the place. But
right.
So I like to bridge the two, though, because it's not really going to be effective if you're not where your audience is, but it's also not really going to be effective if you are somewhere that you're forcing yourself just because your audience is there. So I like to kind of find that middle ground and start posting there and linking back to some sort of either, I like a high-end, high-touch, high-quality content like a blog post or a podcast, something that's a little bit more in-depth. I like to call it long-form content, but it's really the purpose is to have something that's a little bit more meat in it than a single tweet would, for example.
Right. Oh, definitely. You want to have something with meat in it. Otherwise, what's the point? There's nothing for people to bite into. They want things that are going to be helpful at the end of the day.
Exactly.
That's what makes it powerful. So obviously, having content truly matters when it comes to building an audience. But then what is it they should be offering people? Because they have the content, but then, well, what's next? What is it they should be doing that makes people say, ooh, I want to know more about this person?
Yeah, so it depends how you want to sell. I like to help people who feel like they have a really big message or an impact that they want to make in the world. And a lot of times this population is afraid of being salesy or sleazy online. And so one of the things that I like to do is you don't have to sell outright on Facebook if you don't feel comfortable, especially at first. One way that you could do it is set up a simple funnel, which would just get people onto your email list, and then you offer them a small product, or then you offer them to get on the phone for a sales call or something like that, where it's not as direct on Facebook, but you can do it on the back end. So that's one option. The other option is ask them to get on the phone and help them through a free call if you're really up for talking. I think people undervalue the power of talking to people one-on-one. And just because it's an online business doesn't mean that one-on-one component should be completely skipped.
Oh, definitely. Because when you think about it, starting off one-on-one is a great way to get your feet wet. Because it's, so many people that want to jump straight into a group program, but without knowing, let's say, what the commonalities, what are the common problems people are experiencing, you can end up going down the wrong route for a group program.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So it just makes logical sense to be able to figure this out. And then also it's, in terms of technology, it's so much easier. If someone wants to start coaching, well, then you could just use your phone, you could use Skype, and that's it. You don't have to worry about any webinar platforms or however else you would want to do the group coaching. It just makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah, and I think the mistake, like I said, a lot of people want to go right into course creation. And the problem I see with that is even if you have a very small audience, they're not like 100% vested in you yet. So when you go into the shadows to the course creation room, you're ignoring your audience. And so, and plus that's investing a lot of time. You know, I work with moms, so time is the most valuable resource, more than money. So that is investing a lot of time into something that may or may not be right for them. Like you said, you know, the pain point might be off, the topic might be off, or whatever. So I like to, even if they go into course creation, run it live first and don't spend time creating it yet until you have validated it, meaning selling a couple of people into that program and doing it live as you go.
Oh, and that is one of the most valuable things when it comes to course creation, because you think about how many times you'll see someone, they're going to say, I'm going to spend the next couple weeks working on this course to sell it. And my reaction is, why? Spend an hour, create an outline, then go sell it. If you sell it, great. Congratulations. Now you go create it, versus you waste a couple weeks and then you realize no one bought it. Mm-hmm. It turns things on its head.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with getting the money up front, because that's the same thing you would do in a coaching relationship.
Right. Exactly. And people might think, but that doesn't seem very right and fair. It's been done for ages. If you think about, at a time, depending on how old somebody is, you can look at old TV commercials, and you would see where you would order something, and it would tell you, oh, it'll be 4 to 6 weeks for delivery. Well, there's a reason behind that. They didn't make it yet. Mm-hmm. So they're batching everything up to get the best possible price on it, and then they send it. So it's something that's not a new concept, but it's a matter of doing what's effective. So if someone doesn't buy it, great. You're out, 30 minutes for working on an outline or so? You just move on and do it again versus weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and I think one of the keys, right, to this whole online business is the speed of implementation, just because it's moving so quickly. And if you take down that time that you would have spent creating a course for 2 weeks, it's getting your audience right after they told you what their pain point was. So let's say they said, I really need to figure out XYZ. If you don't provide it in the next couple of weeks, they're going to go find the answer somewhere else. So that speed of implementation can really help you to propel you forward.
Right, exactly. Because you look at how many things out there, there's that limited time, that limited window where you can truly be able to leverage it. Here's a great example. Think about the whole Pokemon Go craze that was going on for a little while. Mm-hmm. That for about a month or so, everyone's talking about it left and right. Like, oh my gosh, this is incredible! This is amazing! This is so much fun. When was the last time you saw someone posting on Facebook that they were using it?
Yeah, it's been a while for me.
Right. So there's always limited windows of opportunity, and you just have to jump upon it because you don't know how long something is going to be a valuable solution. So you have to put it out there, because if someone else does it, well, then you're just kind of second place. Then it looks like you're the person that's copying them, when in reality you just took too long to get your message out there. Mm-hmm. And then ultimately people can go buy from someone else. If they already found the solution, why they're going to buy it from you?
Yep, exactly.
So that's always that challenge. So when it comes to, obviously, having that content out there and building that list and having that offer and getting it out there, what are some of those ways that people can position themselves as an expert? Like getting featured in the Huffington Post and places like that. What are some of those places where people can get their message out there and have an easy way to get found? Because some people would think the Huffington Post, oh my gosh, that'd be hard to get in there. Was that difficult for you?
Actually, I wrote a blog post about that, and it taught me a few things, and some of the most important ones I'll just highlight here, and if you want, we can link to it.
Of course.
So basically, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So I like to preface it with that, and that is across the board. I've had clients who have become regulars on TV shows. I've had people who have, gone out there and been on Huffington Post and etc. So you can do the same thing. But it all starts with getting out of your own way and asking and getting yourself out there. So where would you want to go? It really depends on who your audience is and what they're looking at. So you want to kind of think, what would my audience think is a cool place to be featured? Or what is my audience reading as far as magazines, books, what podcasts are they listening to, that kind of thing. And asking the publication, just going out there and asking them. For Huffington Post, I wrote the article ahead of time and had it, my coach and I went over everything and just made sure it had no serious typos. But hey, to be honest with you, I posted it and somebody came back to me and told me there was a typo. And that was after 2 people reviewed it and myself. So
wow,
that happens, and don't worry about it, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. And if I would have held back, I probably would still be editing that same post. So
right.
One of my big messages is just get it out there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And even if there's errors or if it's not exactly the way that you wanted it to be, there's still going to be more opportunities.
Right. Oh, definitely. I mean, I look at websites like CNN and so forth, and every now and then, here it is, I see an article that one of their regular editors has produced, and sometimes there'll be 2 or 3 typos in there or a spelling mistake. Mm-hmm. And it just comes down to people are human. Like, so what? If they had to get the content out, if there's a spelling mistake, big deal. Like, it's not the end of the world. And at the end of the day, too, when you think about it, what's more important, that one word that's misspelled or the message that you're trying to convey?
Mm-hmm. So true.
Because no matter what, there's going to be people who focus in just on the mistakes and say, oh, well, this is full of mistakes and blah, 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 blah. Well, there's probably a good chance that person was never going to buy from you in the first place. So why worry about it?
Yeah, actually, that's funny because there was one girl who would always come to me. She'd be like, you have some typos on your website or whatever. And I told her one day, I said, I'm not really going to have my VA or me myself go through my entire website and fix every typo. That's really not a good use of our time. And at the end of the day, whoever's going to buy from me is not really concerned with the typos. They're more into the message. And wouldn't you know it, that she ended up hiring me as her coach a few weeks later. Like, sometimes those things that we think are so big in our head, right, are mm-hmm. really either the person really is admiring you and they like your work, or at the end of the day, they're not going to buy from you anyway. So it really,
right.
Those kind of things are trivial compared to getting your message out there. And believe me, you will make such a big impact on the people that like your message and want to hear your message.
Right. Oh, definitely. So what's a good example? Like, someone that they were sitting on the fence about getting their message out there, and then you help them finally do it, and then they received feedback. They started getting clients. What was a good success story? Something that made people think, oh my gosh, I really need to get my message out there.
Yeah, I had one girl who she was doing like pregnancy coaching, mm-hmm. and she just wasn't really sure. It didn't feel right for her. And when we looked at the reasons why she started, it actually turned out that she really was feeling more of an urge to help moms who want to design their own life and their own futures. And so she went out there, and it was, I think she got her first client in a brand new business in 3 weeks, and
Wow.
another high-end paying client just shortly after that. And I really am so proud of my clients. I have even offered in the past, like, make your money back or I'll continue to coach you for free. I have done this kind of thing because I really stand by the work that I do. And I think as a coach, it's something to be really, to think about doing, right? It's hard in different fields, but how can people get the most return on their investment, whatever that might look like for them?
Right. And that's important, that people understand what it takes to position themselves to have that result, because you never know who is going to resonate with that message out there. Mm-hmm. And in this person's case, when they put themselves out there, what did they do in terms of getting their message out there so they got noticed and had success in 3 weeks? What did they do?
So she had a Facebook group, but it was all of her pregnancy women, meaning like it was all for her previous business of women who wanted pregnancy coaching. And what we ended up doing is creating a brand new group, and her group had less than 50 people in it. And she just gave so much value to those people. She coached people for free. We did a challenge, which is, in case the listeners don't know, it's kind of like a mini course that you give them over several days and to solve one specific problem. So she did the market research. She asked them what they wanted, and they told her they wanted a challenge on creating challenges. And she had done challenges before for her pregnancy coaching, so she felt really confident. And I think that piece is something that I always feel called to talk about, because how confident you are about your offer often determines how well it'll do.
Right.
So whatever it is you're teaching, make sure you've done it before and make sure you feel really confident about doing it. So she launched with the challenge on challenges and ended up getting her clients right after that challenge. She got more people on the phone, coached for free. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with coaching for free, as long as you're doing it to actually coach, not a fake discovery call, because that's slimy.
Oh, yes. And there's so many people that do that. Let's say, here's a discovery call, but it's really a sales pitch. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're going to call something a discovery call to truly help someone provide value, then do that. Mm-hmm. It's not difficult, because it doesn't take long in the world of social media for people to start sharing their experience, so you can decide, will it be one that everyone's like, oh, this is amazing, it was so valuable, or, oh yeah, I felt like I was in a pitch fest for the entire 30 minutes.
Exactly. And I think that's really the reason that these people have gotten great results. It's because they come at it from a place of service.
Right. And that's what matters most. It's coming from a place of service. How can you help people? Because that is what makes the biggest difference in the world. When you go in with pure intentions of helping someone succeed in what they're doing versus looking at it as, I see you as a paycheck. I see you as a meal ticket. It's a different approach.
Totally. 100%.
As it's so important that people understand that. So as you've put all these things in together, what are some of those, the challenges that moms are facing with growing their business while balancing being a mom? Like, what can they be doing with some of those challenges to minimize the impact on their business?
I think the number one struggle is time. There's just, as you know, being a mom is a 24/7 job. And whether you work outside of the home or not, you have lots of responsibilities. And so one of the messages that I want to get out there is focusing on the right things at your right phase of business or for where you are. So like I said before, right, when you start to focus on one-on-one coaching at first, you only need one client to make a significant amount of money. And so that is a great place to start because you don't need a huge audience. So focusing on the thing that's going to make you the most money in that short amount of time that you have to work on your business.
Oh, excellent. And that is important notes. What's going to give you the biggest impact? Now, obviously, when you think about social media and content and things, there's so much to do. At what point should that entrepreneur consider hiring a VA to lighten the load?
For me, I feel like it depends on their comfort level with it and their vision. I really strongly feel that the vision of your business is only yours, and it's something to really sit down and take some time to think about where you want your business to go. So
right.
If that's in your vision, if it's in your vision to hire help, it's okay to do it a little bit before you feel ready. And that might feel uncomfortable. It might be controversial for some people. But here's why I think that's so important. You don't have to hire a VA for starting off for 40 hours a week. That's not really how it goes. But what you can do is delegate a couple things here and there. And I really think one of the problems with hiring a VA is that people think they're going to do everything under the sun and they don't set them up for success. So one of my big things is let's create a system first and you train your VA to work within that system. And an example for social media, I have a free content challenge where I walk people through my system for creating content. And what we basically do is reverse engineer a Facebook post and kind of repurpose it and kind of get the most bang for your buck for your work. And what we do is if you want to delegate that, you have a system now in place that you can give to a VA versus telling a VA, go post for me on Facebook, right? That's really tough.
Right.
Really
Oh, yeah. But you think about how many times it happens where someone will assume, oh, they're just going to know what needs to be done without any instructions. It's kind of like telling a 5-year-old of, okay, go make dinner and leaving it at that. You're not going to get anything back remotely close to what you were looking for.
Yeah. And I think too, like it's okay for you to do some of the things that you need to train your VA on a few times so that you can create the system. So then the best use of your time is to create that system, because it does take a little bit of time, right, to write it all down on paper, and I literally, and I've have, some podcast episodes on this because I feel really strongly about it. And I say, literally, step 1, log into Facebook. Step 2, open up this browser. And step 3, copy here. And step 4, paste here. Because you want it to be so simple and so clear to them that they're going to be able to be set up for success. I'm not saying that, VAs are dumb or anything like that. That's not what it's about. It's really about setting up people for success and making sure they understand their expectations, because you wouldn't, if you were to be hired at, let's say, even McDonald's, they're not going to send you there and say, go check out people. That's just not how
Right.
it works. So I think in online business, we forget that that is our job, right? That is our job, to create a system and to train people if we want to bring them on. And why I think that we should hire a little bit before we're ready is because you can start small and you need this time to train them before you're overwhelmed with clients.
Right, exactly. That's the ideal time to do it, because the last thing you want to have happen is you bring somebody on board when you are just slammed with clients, because then you end up that situation, you're not able to provide them with the level of instruction that you need. And that happens so often where someone says, well, I don't have time to train them. Whoops. And it becomes that catch-22. In order to grow, you need to have a VA, but in order to have a VA, you need to train them. So people get stuck really fast there, which can prove to be a challenge. So now, when it comes to VAs in business, what are your thoughts about having a specialist VA versus just the general, they can do pretty much anything?
I like to have both. I think as a business owner, you have to think like a CEO. And I think a lot of times I relate this to my work in the neuro ICU. The CEO of the hospital was not the one doing the brain surgery, right? And although their pay might have been similar, okay? And the secretary was not doing the job of the CAT scan specialist. And there's a very good reason for that. It's because we need to think about the right task for the right person. And so, yes, you're going to have to create some systems around communication back and forth between your team members where you might not be involved, right? But again, you can bridge that over through creating systems and having a great, team building stuff. I mean, you can have meetings, you can have whatever to facilitate this. But I think it's our duty to really get the right task for the right person.
Right. Oh, definitely. That's extremely important to have that right task, because so many times what causes failure in a business is they give the task to the wrong person, where you think they can do it, but it's not the most efficient usage of their time. That to have someone just do, let's say, basic stuff, why would you give it to, let's say, someone who's really advanced at building marketing funnels when you just need to proofread an email? It's where are you going to spend your time at?
Yes, and it all comes back to this, because we all have the same amount of time. And even your VAs, as you're hiring them, as you're hiring people onto your team, they have a set amount of time that they're working for you. So you want to maximize that.
Right. Exactly. It's all about time at the end of the day. Now, when it comes to time and, say, scheduling, are there any tips that you provide people to maximize the usage of it?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot. I think one of the first things is don't be afraid to let go of some of the tasks that you could hand off to a VA. What ends up happening is people are afraid. They say, I can't afford a VA. And when you look at it, if you are doing a task that you could hand off for maybe $10 an hour, or let's say it's more, let's say it's like $25 for the specialized VA. Well, you have like created an income ceiling for yourself. You can now not make more than $25 during that hour, right?
Right.
So I like to think of it as, think about the tasks you're doing and hand off as much as possible and focus on the things that make you a little bit more money. That's my first tip. I think the second thing that I found myself doing, because like I said, I was building my business when my daughter was literally on a breathing monitor in my home.
Wow.
or in the NICU. And so how the heck did I do that? And one of the principles that I use, it's from the book, The One Thing. And it's very simple. You focus on the one thing that's going to move you towards your goal, and you just do that thing. What I find people doing is that one thing is often scary. It's often not comfortable. And so they'll do everything else on the to-do list, but the most important thing doesn't get done.
Right.
And so focusing on the one thing, doing that first, and then calling yourself done for the day. And I mean that. Like, yes, you're going to have other things to do, but consider that one thing as if you've done it, you have succeeded for the day. If you do anything else, that's gravy on top. And that's been the number one thing, coincidentally, that has helped me to build my business, because there's just a million things you could be focusing on. Even when you asked about social media, right? You could be on Twitter, you could be on Snapchat, you can be on Pinterest, everything else. But what is the one platform that you want to focus on? And you can go through and apply the one thing to pretty much any area and really streamline it. So it's just the most simple. And that's going to help you just master that one thing and be able to get success in that area.
Right, exactly. You have to focus, but also know when to stop. Because I think one of the challenges that comes into place, as you were mentioning, it's some people want to try to be everywhere, but focusing on that one platform, but then also knowing when is it that you are done for the day, because it's so easy as an entrepreneur just to keep going and going, and before you know it, you're working 18 plus hours a day. Mm-hmm. And then you realize your family hasn't seen you in the past month and a half.
Yeah. And so I think the most important thing when it comes to that is being comfortable leaving things on the table. Like, be comfortable not checking off every box.
Right. Exactly. Because you will get through some things, and then sometimes you're just simply not going to get to them. And you have to be okay with that, knowing that you're going to get it done the next day or the day after that. But then that should also be an indicator. If you're consistently not getting a certain group of things done, it might be time to hire that VA, because those things can often be those aspects that are holding you back in business. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like I tell people all the time, like, even though I can do some stuff, like if I wanted to really design like a header for a website, like, could I sit around and do that for a couple hours, figure out what I want on it? Yes, but it's not an efficient usage of my time. I will gladly pay somebody to get it done, and then I don't worry about it anymore. It's off my list until I get it back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, isn't that the best feeling ever?
It's like, okay, let's see, I need to order this, so they get it done. Okay, next. And then you just keep on going, because I get to spend the next 4 hours or more working on this, or I spend 10 minutes writing out the exact thing I want and then pressing send. Mm-hmm. And that's the last I think about it until I get an email back. Is this what you're looking for? And the response is either yes, great, then it's really done, or no, make these changes. And that's it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's all a matter of that.
Yeah,
go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead.
I recently I was giving all of my clients the same template. And so I thought, well, this is obviously something that they need. So right. I decided I was giving it to them kind of in an ugly format, just on Trello. I use Trello a lot for my business. Mm-hmm. And I thought, how can I leverage this? How can I make this more useful? And what came to mind is, let me send this off to my VA. They can create the template, and we can even sell this, right? So as you're thinking about this whole handing off and delegating thing, remember that if you get them to do something that, first of all, is not a great use of your time, but second of all, you could possibly sell, that's a great investment in the time that my VA spent creating that ebook, you know. basically template thing. So I'm sorry. So I just was thinking, don't be afraid to invest in a VA, because that return on investment can actually be huge for you if you allow it.
Right, exactly. That's so vital. And, as we're beginning to wrap things up here, what would you say are the biggest benefit of someone running challenges to grow their business?
I love challenges because it is like a little mini course, but you can also have the opportunity to coach people through Facebook group. You could do some more like hands-on coaching. I've had some clients who have done like a mini webinar after the challenge in a Zoom meeting and had more high touch that way. But I think that it allows for people to see the array of knowledge that you have, and also it gives them some personal attention, meaning if they have questions, they can reach out to you during the challenge and you can help them one-on-one. So I think it all goes back to, it just builds a stronger relationship and it's more high touch.
Right. Oh, definitely. And that's a great thing to do, because so many times people forget that the more engagement that you have, the stronger the relationships, and that ultimately leads to more people wanting to invest in what you have to offer.
Yep.
So how can people be able to learn more about what you're doing and ultimately connect with you?
So you can find me at marianacruiz.com, and I have also a Facebook community that I lead. It's called Entrepreneurial Moms. And those are the main places. I create a lot of content. I have a blog and a podcast, so you can definitely tune in to those things and find out more about us.
Oh, excellent. Well, Mariana, it was great to have you on the Big Movement podcast today and share your wealth of wisdom of how moms can be able to build a business and start being able to have more time to be with their family, to ultimately watch their children grow.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.